Hello and welcome back to Exothermic Plays Games. I'm Exothermic and I've been doing a daily countdown of my 366 favorite video games of all time. Earning a coveted spot in the top 10 for its immersive environment, electrifying intense combat, and outstanding narrative is my 7th favorite game, BioShock. BioShock is an allegorical story about the dangers of unchecked capitalism and how total, unfettered consumerism and keeping up with the Joneses can lead to complete and absolute corruption of your body and soul. So have yourself a Merry Christmas, and God bless us, everyone. After talking about this franchise in totally the wrong order, I am finally able to proclaim my love for the first game to you all. But before I go on, I should mention this game is filled with extraordinary graphic violence, so if you're not about that, this isn't the video for you. But the game is great, so there's that. You are Jack, a voiceless protagonist, and there seems to be not a whole lot going on. This is a first-person shooter, immersive sim, and you're pretty much going around doing what you're told. After all, it's not like there's a whole lot else you can do. Your plane crashed in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean near a very tiny island with a lighthouse in the middle of nowhere. Swim ashore and get in. Immediately, you are presented with a giant statue of a man, with a banner saying, "No gods or kings, only man." This concept is critical to the world building here, and it's obvious you are stepping into a world all its own as you enter the bathysphere and dive deep into the ocean, where standing triumphant on the ocean floor is the sprawling underwater city of Rapture. Rapture was conceived by Andrew Ryan, an extremely wealthy industrialist who wanted to create a society where the ideals of scientific ingenuity, free market, artistic freedoms is all just everything is free to do what you want, and that dictates everything with minimal influence from government bodies or religion. This allowed for rapid progress and scientific breakthroughs, but to what end you'll see shortly. Rapture is an incredible setting, and it's also like a time capsule in a way. Rapture fell apart in basically 1960, New Year's Eve 1959, and then this is a few years later, and yeah, you really just get teleported back. There's a lot of great aesthetic stuff going on. I've played all of these games several times over, and I've read the novel about the city's descent into chaos multiple times, cover to cover, and I am so beyond excited for Netflix's film adaptation. I love Rapture itself. But once you're down there, it's immediately apparent that things are not exactly going well for Rapture. The place is run down and in serious need of maintenance, which for a city at the bottom of the ocean, that's a pretty big problem to have. But a more pervasive issue is the people. You are contacted on the radio of the bathysphere by a man named Atlas, who is directly opposed to Andrew Ryan. I do want to mention that while it's a bit on the nose, I very much appreciate that the name for the character you are helping against Andrew Ryan is Atlas. Andrew Ryan, the name and background for the character loosely based on Ayn Rand, author of Atlas Shrugged. It's all they thought about it. I don't know that they needed to think about it, but they thought about it. Atlas explains that he can help you get out of Rapture, but in order to do that, you have to help him. First, his family is locked away from him, and if you can unite them all, you'll be able to join their submarine and get out of there. But that's a lot easier said than done. Rapture is crawling, and I mean sometimes in the literal sense, with splicers. One of the biggest driving factors to the downfall of Rapture was the creation of something called plasmids, which are basically injections that modify your genetic code to give you superpowers. In order to gain access to plasmids, you need a resource called Adam, and using them expends your Eve. It's poetic. It's, again, very on the nose. But the people down here have become addicted to Adam and will kill people, such as yourself, to get more. So, naturally, you have to protect yourself. Initially, you're armed with only a wrench, but over the course of the game, you find tons of different weapons and, of course, many different plasmids. You can electrocute enemies, which is especially good if they're standing in water, but you can also use that, for example, to open locked doors by shocking the controls. Or you can light enemies on fire, and then you might find oil slicks, and you can light the oil, the gasoline on fire, and do lots of stuff with that, or melt ice. Many of your plasmids are as useful in navigating your environment as they are in combat, and the game really is about this exploration. The vibes and atmospheric qualities here are absolutely unparalleled, even amongst the other games in its own franchise. This first trip to Rapture is about the discovery of this god-forsaken tomb of a city, with excitement around every corner. As I mentioned, maybe you unfreeze a door and find some loot. Maybe a splicer turns off the light and appears directly behind you. Just, God, I hate jump scares, but they are pretty good here. Maybe you stay hidden and just observe a couple splicers stalking their prey, a little sister and her big daddy. As we learn throughout the game, Adam is harvested from these special sea slugs that are unique to that area, but key to getting more is little sisters. These are children that were corrupted and brainwashed into seemingly heartless little monsters. They find corpses of dead splicers and collect the Adam from their bodies. Guarding them are giant men in diver suits with rivet guns, grenade launchers, and their iconic, enormous drill. One of the more fun things about BioShock, and one of its greatest challenges, is that these big daddies will leave you alone unless you attack them or the little sister first. However, getting Adam is one of the biggest ways for you to improve your character, doing things like increasing your health, buying tonics which give you all sorts of passive upgrades, unlocking new plasmids, and even unlocking additional slots for plasmids so you can have more of them equipped at a time. If you're smart about it, you can set up for a Big Daddy fight ahead of time, laying traps and hacking turrets and the like. I do really like the hacking in this game. It's just a quick little puzzle where you have these tubes slowly filling with liquid. You have to uncover the different tiles and then move them around to connect the different parts of the tubes to build a path to the exit of the puzzle for the liquid to go through, while also maneuvering around special tiles like alarms that alert the security drones. There's danger everywhere you lurk, and unlike the other BioShock games, I constantly feel like I'm at a disadvantage here. I love that feeling for this game, is it makes every enemy, every unexplored area not only exciting because you never know what cool stuff you'll find, but also gets the adrenaline going because I'm constantly running on fumes. Ammo is sparse, so is money, and health kits only last so long, especially against the big fights and big daddies and things like that. As amazing as it is to feel incredibly powerful in BioShock 2, where you are playing as a big daddy, I think the first game is enriched for feeling completely powerless. So why take all of those risks if you're just putting yourself in danger, exploring every nook and cranny? Well, that's simple. The world is great, and the audio logs you find are phenomenal. The main way you learn much of the things going on in Rapture and its history is through these audio logs you find that people have left behind. You get tons of these little personal vignettes and subplots, either of the movers and the shakers of the city, or just everyday citizens. Oftentimes, you may follow along with someone for a while, wondering how their story ended, and then you find their corpse later on in the game, and you're able to connect the dots yourself. At other times, you meet this, great big character to the overall narrative and the importance of promoting Rapture as a city, and then you find they could be now a big boss fight that's gone off the deep end, or they have hidden themselves away and they're kind of a shadow of their former selves. And all of this is really interesting, and this is some of the best writing for any game I've ever played. and it's delivered in such a way that you just discover it and kind of throw yourself in, and you get every bit back that you put into it, plus a little bit of extra. It's especially good during like the Sandra Cohen sections of the game, where you're having to deal with this deranged avant-garde artist, and you're listening to audio logs detailing the evolution of his works, and it builds up to the reveal of his most recent thing, and it's just such a monstrous work. It's insane. He's insane, and everyone in this damn city is insane. Well, almost everyone. There's a few people you helped along the way that are at least a little rational. Maybe still a little murdery, but they're justifiably paranoid and are thinking clearly, just, you know, they have trust issues. Like this dude, Peach Wilkins. You need to pass through his little fort, but he thinks you're out to get him is an agent of Frank Fontaine, a businessman who pioneered the whole plasmid industry, who went head-to-head with Andrew Ryan until Ryan had him taken out. Peach had turned on Fontaine, so now he thinks there's some revenge plot going on. Ultimately, he tricks you and tries to kill you before you can kill him, even though you didn't even want or need to. Boss fights in BioShock are, unfortunately, not that exciting. It's really the only criticism I think anyone can actually have of this game, and the problem stems from almost every boss just feeling like a regular splicer, but with a lot more health, and even then, not that much more health. There can still be the challenge aspect of it, because sometimes they have, for example, a ton of lackeys, and you're fighting just a ludicrous amount of enemies all the time in the boss fight. But I wish the bosses felt more different. For example, I killed Peach and didn't even realize it was him instead of some other splicer until I finished killing everything else in the room and couldn't figure out where he ran off to, only to discover that, oh, I did kill him. As disappointing as things like that can be, BioShock gets a pass for it because, after all, these are just normal people, put on giant pedestals by a city's ideals where men like Ryan and Fontaine are larger than life, and anyone could theoretically become the next Ryan or Fontaine. You know, the whole sweat of your brow, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of arguments. And oh man, are they just men. When you finally reach the submarine, things are looking pretty good, and then Andrew Ryan is able to take control of the doors there and sends in his agents and blows up the submarine with Atlas's family inside it. The dude is justifiably pretty pissed, and now has a new goal that you're going along with because, hey, that was your ride out too, and what else are you gonna do? And so let's go kill Andrew Ryan. There's a whole lot of steps to getting there, and Ryan proves to be a pain in the ass every step of the way. Like, he tries to kill the oxygen system for the whole place, which, wow. But eventually, you do get there. He's in his office, and he sees you, and he starts one of the greatest monologues ever written. This is the climax of the game, and it's a whole big thing. So if you're wanting to check this out for yourself and don't want to be spoiled, stop watching now, because I'm just going to let it play.
No, a man chooses. A slave obeys. You think you have memories. A farm, a family, an airplane, a crash, and then this place. Was there really a family? Did that airplane crash? Or was it hijacked? Forced down. Forced down by something less than a man, something bred to sleepwalk through life until they are activated by a simple phrase spoken by their kindly master. Was a man sent to kill, or a slave? A man chooses. A slave obeys. Come in. Stop, would you kindly? Would you kindly? Powerful phrase. familiar phrase?
Would you kindly? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch?
Sit, would you kindly? Stand, would you kindly? Run! Stop! Turn. A man chooses. A slave obeys. Kill! A man chooses.
The revelation that Atlas had been controlling you the whole time is massive, and the whole thing about a man chooses and a slave obeys is incredible, and this whole thing revolutionized what a video game narrative could be to me. And one of the things that makes the game so great is that if you want to play through it a second time and pay attention to every time someone uses the phrase, "would you kindly?" it's finely woven throughout every step of the story, and it takes the idea that people just blindly do what NPCs tell them in a video game because it's a video game, and what you're supposed to do, you know, even if it's horribly violent and terrible things, and just turns it on its head in a very meta way that is absolutely genius. BioShock has the advantage of basically doing this first, and I feel like there's been countless games that have been chasing after the same shock value, the same visceral reaction that Andrew Ryan handing you the golf club and telling you to obey had, but none of them have remotely had the same impact, I think. That being said, I don't think that this is just a first one to do it gets all the credit situation. I've 100%ed BioShock on Xbox 360 and then played more, and I've played through the whole game probably 5 or 6 times now, and I'm still consistently blown away by Andrew Ryan's death. It's amazing. The rest of the game is all fallout from this, and with Ryan out of the way, choosing his own way to die instead of Splicers, or worse, Fontaine finding him, there's a power vacuum to fill, and yes, Fontaine is alive. Peach was correct, and in fact, you've been helping him this whole time. Atlas is Fontaine. He was making up this Atlas character. He didn't even have a family on that submarine, and the reveal there is pretty fun, actually, and it was all just a ruse. In fact, you're a sleeper agent for Fontaine. You're the illegitimate son of Andrew Ryan, though he didn't know that, and Fontaine and his scientists experimented on you using plasmids to enhance you and create the mind control trigger of "would you kindly." As you progress through the end parts of the game, you eventually confront Fontaine and kill him, with the exact ending being dependent on your decisions regarding harvesting or saving little sisters throughout the game in your quest to get Adam. I've mentioned a few times how absolutely stacked 2007 was for video games, and I can finally be done talking about it, because BioShock is the greatest game to come from it. Every step of the narrative is perfect, and there's an atmosphere through every part of Rapture that makes it feel both alive as a city and a character all its own, while you can also tell you're walking through the rotting corpse of a civilization. And while it's a bit on the nose, the allegory of BioShock is, I think, frighteningly relevant today. Not to get too real with you all on this video game channel, but replaying this game, where the fall of a civilization originated with corporate greed, especially in regards to the health and well-being of the populace, the same month that the CEO of the largest health insurance company in the United States was assassinated for their positions of corporate greed, especially in regards to the health and well-being of the populace, brought a whole new perspective on things for this game. So yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody. Also, there's not a lot of things left to do this year, and you can join me on Wednesday, January 1st at 1 p.m. Eastern Time as I do a several-hour-long live stream celebrating the completion of this whole project. There will be giveaways, you can ask me all sorts of questions, and I'll go through all 366 games again as I rank them head-to-head with fresh memories from each rather than relying on stuff from sometimes over 20 years ago. But until then, you can join me tomorrow as I talk about my 6th favorite game where I just want to have ice cream with my friends.